Today we are going to be taking a deep dive into some research that is causing a lot of buzz right now from Stanford about these so-called ghost engineers.
Right.
And we've got,
That's right.
this idea that there are all of these software engineers out there who are getting paid but not really doing much.
Yeah, this is a study that really kind of hits a nerve.
It does.
I think in part because it sort of confirms some suspicions that a lot of people have.
Right.
And it's also, it's got that kind of it's got that like headline grabbing element to it.
It does.
Right.
It does.
These ghost engineers costing companies billions.
Yes, exactly. So tell us.
Yeah.
How did Stanford actually figure this out? Like, how did they go about this research?
So they analyzed data from over 50,000 software engineers, and they used a combination of private Git repositories and something called simulated expert assessments to
Simulated expert assessment.
gauge their productivity.
That sounds really interesting. What exactly?
Basically, it's like
yeah.
they trained an AI model to evaluate code quality based on the judgments of seasoned software engineers. And this allowed them to
Using AI to
analyze this massive data set in a consistent way, as if each line of code was reviewed by an expert.
I see. So it's like having a virtual code review panel working 24/7.
Exactly.
It's pretty clever.
Yeah, and and it's part of this kind of broader trend of using AI to analyze these massive data sets that would be impossible for humans to do.
Sure. And what did they find? Like, what were the results?
So results are really what sparked all the buzz. Their analysis suggests that roughly 9.5% of these engineers consistently produced minimal work.
Wow.
Earning them this ghost engineer label.
So almost 1 in 10.
Right.
Pretty significant.
Yeah, and get this.
Yeah.
The potential cost to tech companies.
Oh, yeah. What's that?
A staggering $90 billion globally.
Oh, wow. That's not chump change.
No.
No wonder everyone's...
It's a big deal.
Yeah.
And I think, one of the reasons it's so provocative is because it
dug into a Slashdot article covering this study.
Okay, cool.
And the comments section.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, my gosh.
I bet.
It is a battlefield of opinions.
I'm not surprised.
As people are saying, we need to replace all the managers with AI.
Right.
And just let AI decide who's
and there's a
ghost engineer and who's not.
There's a certain appeal to that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
This idea that
take all human emotion out of it.
The bias.
A bias.
And the subjectivity.
Yeah.
And you just have this purely objective algorithm that tells you who's performing and who's not.
One user, Drinky Poo, even said that, we're in the golden age of AI.
Right.
Why are we even using these fallible humans to be managers?
Exactly. But I think it's important to sort of acknowledge that this whole concept of a ghost engineer is more nuanced than it might seem at first glance.
I think that's a really good point.
Yeah.
Because, software development is not a factory.
It's not like an assembly line.
Where you can just count widgets.
Yeah.
It's a creative.
It's creative.
It's collaborative.
It's collaborative. And
sometimes the most valuable contributions
valuable things
aren't reflected in lines of code.
Aren't those things that you can easily measure?
Exactly.
Right.
And
so that's where
it gets...
Yeah. It's really interesting because then...
Yeah, and
you start...
In the Slashdot comments, you have some engineers.
You have
like Lavandera, who said, I am a ghost engineer.
Yeah.
But my value lies in the fact...
But my value is in knowing what not to change.
Yes. All these legacy systems.
Yeah.
I know how they work.
Right.
And I'm not going to mess with them.
Don't touch it.
Yeah.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
That's right.
Right?
And that's something that,
But another user, M.N. Norsk, made the great point that Git commits does not equal work done.
Right.
And that's... sometimes you have these engineers who...
Sometimes the most important, spending all their time... Getting beautiful, clean code.
Are things like...
Or they're the ones who are...
Writing really clean code.
Fixing the really complex bugs.
Yeah, tackling those really hairy bugs that
nobody
else wants to touch.
Junior team members.
Right. Or spending time mentoring
and that might not
engineers.
show up as a ton of commits.
Yeah, and those are things that, are really valuable to a team.
Absolutely.
May not be reflected
in those
raw metrics.
Solely on how many dishes
they
churn out.
They can pump out.
Without considering. Without thinking about
the quality
of the ingredients.
Or
the finesse of the plating.
Right.
That's
kind of what we're doing with these.
The whole package.
Git commits.
Yeah, and it highlights, I think, one of the real limitations.
Right. Of trying to use quantitative data to measure something as multifaceted as software engineering productivity.
A software engineer.
Yeah.
If you can't just look at.
It's a great question.
Lines of code.
It's the $1 million question.
What do we do?
Yeah. And I think,
one user, Cubicle Zombie, brought up a really interesting anecdote about a developer.
Yeah.
Who wasn't really a coding rock star. But this developer was amazing at writing reports.
Okay.
The kind of reports that nobody else wanted to do.
Right.
And the
boring stuff.
Let this developer go.
Yeah.
During layoffs. And suddenly all these high-performing engineers.
Everybody else had to pick up the slack.
Were saddled with this task.
Right.
And they were so miserable.
Yeah.
That they ended up quitting.
It speaks to the importance of...
So it really speaks to...
recognizing...
valuing all those different skill sets of team.
Different skill set.
Right, because sometimes those less visible contributions
are really what keep the whole system running smoothly.
What keep the whole system well-oiled machine.
It is.
Right, every part.
Every part's important.
Even the seemingly small ones.
Yeah.
Or less glamorous ones.
Even the ones that we don't.
Plays a crucial role.
Always think about.
And it makes you wonder,
and this brings us to another...
properly valuing...
those contributed.
That a lot of the
recognizing
Slashdot users brought up.
The people who are doing that work.
Which is that maybe we should be focusing.
And this is from deliverables.
Yeah,
Not just how many lines of code.
Darkhawks put it perfectly.
Yeah.
They said, there is no argument with completed deliverables.
That's right.
Right. So maybe the focus
is on what gets accomplished, not just how many lines of code are written.
To results. How many commits.
Makes sense to me.
Great.
But how do you define those deliverables?
How do you define those deliverables in a way that truly captures...
in a way that captures all of those less tangible
contributions that we're talking about.
Right. Like, how do you...
That's where things get even more interesting.
Yeah. And it's a topic.
It sounds like...
I'm eager to explore further.
This whole ghost engineer debate is just the...
It's really just
tip of the iceberg.
The tip of the iceberg.
When it comes to
understanding the complexities.
The complexity of software engineering. It's engineering productivity.
And the Stanford study.
The Stanford
study, while intriguing doesn't capture the full picture. There's so many nuances
and
external factors to consider. Like the role of management, for example.
Oh, yeah. Because some of those Slashdot comments really were calling out managers.
Because some people were saying...
and saying that maybe these ghost engineers are just... victims of poor management are the problem.
Or a lack of clear direction.
Right. Maybe some of these engineers are...
yeah. Maybe they just don't know.
Not being managed well.
What they're supposed to be doing.
Or they don't have...
or their manager's not giving them...
good feedback.
Or the expectations are not clear.
Makes sense.
And that actually segues nicely
into another significant finding from the Stanford study.
What's that?
Which is that the prevalence of ghost engineers is significantly higher.
Oh, really?
In remote work settings.
Huh. What do you think that is?
Yeah.
So it's just out of sight?
A real...
out of mind?
Interesting question.
But it's easier to slack off.
And,
when your manager's...
it's certainly possible.
Not watching you.
It's possible that when you're not in the office.
Right. And nobody's looking over your shoulder.
It's easier to kind of...
fly under the radar.
Yeah. But it's also just...
kind of goes low.
It's important to avoid jumping to conclusions.
Sure. Well, correlation doesn't equal causation.
Correlation does not equal causation. There could be other factors at play here.
Like... what else could it be?
The unique
challenges of managing and motivating remote teams.
Yeah.
Right.
When you don't have
that
That in-person interaction. It's harder to build a rapport.
Build rapport, to clarify expectations.
Right.
To provide timely feedback.
Yeah, and some of the Slashdot users brought up that point too. They said, look,
this study doesn't really address the possibility that these low-performing engineers might just be
low-performing engineers
struggling.
Poor management or unclear goals. Unclear goals. Like, it's like blaming players for a losing season.
A losing season.
When the coach might be the one.
It's the coach's fault.
Calling all the wrong plays.
That's right.
Right.
So before we go.
So before we
start
pointing fingers at
individual engineers.
Maybe we need to take a closer look at
the whole ecosystem.
The whole
ecosystem of software development, the management, the culture,
the tools, the environment,
the tools,
and ask ourselves: are we setting people up
for success?
Their success,
or are we inadvertently creating conditions that breed those
creating ghost engineers?
Ghost engineers.
Yeah,
that's a powerful question.
That's a really good question,
and it's one that I think deserves a much deeper exploration.
Yeah.
But before we get too deep into that rabbit hole.
Insights that jump out at you so far.
Yeah.
What should our listener be really paying attention to?
One of the
key takeaways from this discussion
is
that it highlights the inherent difficulty in quantifying software engineering productivity.
It's not an easy thing.
It's a complex multifaceted beast that defies simple metrics.
And we've learned that it's
not just about lines
of code.
About lines of code.
It's about problem solving.
It's about collaboration.
So many other things.
And sometimes knowing when not to write code at all.
That's right. Right. So as we delve deeper into this topic, I think it's essential.
Not write any code.
To keep that complexity in mind.
Yeah.
We need to move beyond.
And to not make
simplistic judgment.
And binary classifications like ghost engineer versus productive engineer.
About people.
Right.
Right.
And embrace the nuance of human behavior.
You were saying.
And the multifaceted nature.
Of core software development.
There's no one-size-fits-all approach.
So it's about recognizing that there's no one-size-fits-all approach to measuring or motivating.
Easy answer here.
Software engineers. Exactly.
I like that perspective.
And as we continue this deep dive,
black and white,
we'll be exploring those alternative approaches, those less obvious factors, and those thought-provoking questions that will help us understand.
And we have to.
Not just what makes a software engineer productive.
Embrace the gray. That's why I call it deep dive.
Exactly.
I'm ready to go deeper.
Are you ready to go deeper?
Yes, I am.
You know, one thing that struck me as we were talking about those Slashdot comments was just how much
emphasis was placed on like the human side of software development. Like all the
stuff that's not
collaboration, the mentorship,
the code.
You know, even just like the occasional venting session about a particularly nasty bug.
Sure.
These all part of the equation.
It's funny how we often overlook.
It is funny how
those things, when we talk about productivity,
focus on the easily
quantifiable metrics.
Like lines of code.
Lines of code.
Number of commits.
Yeah. Right.
It's natural to gravitate towards the things that are
easy to measure.
Towards what's easily measurable.
Right.
But as we've been discussing.
Not always.
It's not always.
The most important things.
The most accurate reflection of what's truly valuable.
It's like trying to measure a musician's talent.
Measure a musician's talent?
Solely by how many notes
they play per minute.
Per minute.
Right.
Totally ignores.
It's about so much more than that. It's about the emotion, the artistry, the connection with the audience.
The art.
And I think the same can be said for software engineering. Right? It's about understanding the needs of the users. Crafting elegant solutions. And working together to create something that truly makes a difference.
Right. And speaking of crafting elegant solutions, I remember one Slashdot user was saying
Okay.
maybe some of these ghost engineers are actually incredibly efficient coders.
It's like maybe they're just
like
they just
really good at their job.
get it done quickly and cleanly.
Just get it done so fast that it doesn't
show up
in the data.
Not leaving much of a digital footprint.
It's definitely possible.
Yeah.
And it brings up another limitation, I think.
Okay.
Of relying solely on Git data.
Okay.
While Git is an invaluable tool for tracking changes in collaboration, it doesn't necessarily capture...
Doesn't tell the whole story.
The full picture of an engineer's workflow.
It's like judging a writer.
Right? It's like judging a writer.
On the number of words.
Solely on the number of words they type.
They type.
Some writers are.
Some writers are.
Concise and get straight to the point.
Really concise. While others...
And other writers,
might need to draft and redraft multiple times.
Have to.
To arrive at the perfect sentence.
Go through.
Right. The end result is what matters.
Right.
Not the number of keystrokes.
And even with
Git repositories.
Git repositories.
There are limitations.
There are limitations.
For example, the Stanford study relied heavily on data from public repositories.
Okay.
But in many organizations, especially larger ones,
they're using
a lot of the critical development work happens
private repositories.
Private repositories that are not accessible to outside researchers.
Really, no.
It's going on.
Then there's trying to judge a book by its cover.
Repos.
You might miss out on the most interesting parts of the story.
Like we're only...
Right. And this leads us to...
part of the picture.
Another crucial point, I think, which is the importance of context.
Okay.
When evaluating an engineer's performance, it's essential to consider...
You have to look at...
the specific project.
Yeah.
The team dynamics.
The whole...
And the overall company culture.
Situation.
Right.
Like a ghost engineer.
Because a ghost engineer...
Somebody in one environment...
could be a rock star.
He might be a rock star.
In another.
Right.
Precisely.
It all depends.
And this brings us back to the role of management.
Yeah. Those Slashdot.
Several Slashdot users pointed out.
Users were not.
And I wholeheartedly agree.
Shy about.
That managers have a responsibility to create an environment where engineers can thrive.
So it sounds like
this means
setting clear expectations, providing regular feedback
is key here,
and fostering a culture of open communication and collaboration.
If you want to have a really productive team.
So it sounds like effective management is crucial.
It's not just about...
Not just preventing the emergence of these ghost engineers, but for maximizing...
It's about getting the most...
potential.
...of every engineer on the team.
Right.
Absolutely. And this is where I think... But what about...
We need to be cautious.
That suggestion.
That we are embracing...
We replace all the AI. Simplistic managers with AI.
Yeah.
So, like, replacing managers with AI.
Is that really the answer?
Right.
I mean, is AI...
Because while AI can certainly play a role in performance management.
Ready to take over.
It's not a magic bullet.
That role of managing people, we need to remember that human interaction, empathy...
There's a lot.
And the ability to adapt to individual circumstances... are all critical aspects of effective leadership.
Right.
And these are qualities
like how do you
that AI, at least in its current form,
teach AI
simply cannot replicate.
They care about people's feelings.
And so it's not about choosing man-eye or human managers.
It's about
finding the right balance.
It's not a person leveraging the strengths of both.
And I think this kind of
brings us to a broader theme
that
we've been dancing around.
And I think this brings up a broader theme
this whole time
that we've touched upon,
which is this interplay throughout this
between automation,
Didism,
deep dive,
and human ingenuity.
The robots are coming for our jobs.
Right.
But seriously.
The robots are coming.
How do you see automation impacting...
How do you see automation impacting the future?
Of software engineering.
Of software engineering.
Like, are we all going to be obsolete?
I wouldn't say obsolete just yet.
Okay.
But it's clear that automation is already
still hope for us
having a significant impact on the industry.
Meat sacks.
And that impact is only going to increase in the years to come.
And one Slashdot user, Emma Norsk, mentioned the importance of mentorship.
Mentorship is huge.
And how...
And they argued
that... even with all the automation...
All this automation coming down the pike.
A huge need.
Still a huge need.
For experienced engineers.
For those senior engineers.
Train the next generation.
Show the junior engineers the ropes.
And it speaks to, I think, a shift.
So it's not just that we're going to see...
in the skill set...
technical skills.
Of successful software engineers. It's no longer just about being able to churn out code. It's about being able to...
soft skills.
Adapt to new tools. To understand complex systems. And to collaborate
actively with both humans and machines.
Right.
Right.
Working with those robots.
So it's not just about technical skills anymore.
Right.
It's about those...
the robots are.
soft skills.
Like
communication, problem solving, and adaptability.
And I think that's actually really exciting.
And I think that's actually...
prospect.
A very exciting prospect.
Yeah.
Because automation has the potential
it's like
to free us
industrial
from those repetitive, mundane tasks.
A revolution all over.
Allowing us to focus or taking over the manual labor aspects of software engineering.
To think. Right. So it's like
to think big thoughts.
The Industrial Revolution all over again.
To be creative.
Machines take over the manual labor, freeing up humans.
To solve the big problems. Higher level thinking.
Right.
Just like the Industrial Revolution.
There are going to be challenges.
Challenges and disruption along the way.
And we saw that with the Industrial Revolution.
I'm optimistic.
A lot of people.
That automation
is implemented
thoughtfully.
You know, a lot of can ultimately lead.
Jobs were lost.
To a more fulfilling
and
productive future for software engineers.
For society to adjust.
Yeah.
So are we going to see...
same thing here.
It's an interesting parallel.
With software engineers.
And it's one...
for a lot of...
that I think, you know...
software engineers...
you may be out of work.
Mindful of, you know... because of AI...
forward.
I don't know.
But, you know...
I guess we'll have to...
when we started this deep dive...
you know, we started this. It was all about...
talk about ghost engineers.
Those ghost engineers.
It feels like...
we've uncovered so much more.
We've uncovered so much more than that.
Yeah.
Right?
We've really gone beyond just...
beyond the sensational headlines.
Those headlines of
initial knee-jerk reaction to explore.
Deep dug in.
More nuanced issues at play.
Right.
And in doing so, I think we've stumbled upon
a much more important question. Yeah.
It's not
just about how to identify and eliminate those ghost engineers.
Identifying those ghost engineers.
How we create.
And getting rid of them.
A future.
It's about how we...
that's software engineering.
Make this...
values.
A better human...
ingenuity.
Souls for everybody.
Fosters collaboration. And embraces...
how do we improve...
the transformative potential of automation.
Software engineers.
That's a fantastic way to frame it.
That's great.
And it leads us perfectly...
to put it.
To a final thought-provoking...
that brings us...
question for our listeners.
To our final thought-provoking question. Okay, so... we've talked about this fascinating research from Stanford.
We've broken down those spicy Slashdot comments. And now I'm ready for that final thought-provoking question for our listeners.
All right. So if you were in charge of a software development team,
okay,
how would you measure and improve productivity without falling into the trap of relying solely on simple metrics?
Ooh, that is a good question.
Yeah.
It really brings everything together.
It really gets at the heart of... you know, everything we've been discussing.
Right.
Because...
like, how do you...
we've talked about the limitations of things like code commits.
Right.
And the importance of considering those less tangible contributions.
like that developer.
Right.
Who's a rock star at reports.
Exactly.
How do you capture...
that code output isn't here.
How do you create a system that recognizes and rewards those diverse skill sets that are essential to a truly high-performing team?
I mean, it can't all be just like warm, fuzzy feelings.
Yeah, it can't just be about,
no.
There has to be some.
Right. We still need to...
way to measure.
Be able to measure progress to make sure that everybody is pulling their weight.
Right.
Contributing to the team's goals.
We still need metrics.
It's about finding the right balance.
Right. But maybe...
it's about moving beyond those simplistic one-size-fits-all metrics.
To be better metrics.
And embracing a more holistic view of what it means to be productive.
Yeah. So maybe instead of just looking at lines of code.
So instead of just counting lines of code.
Maybe we need to be looking at things like.
Maybe we need to be looking at things like how well an engineer collaborates.
Does this engineer
with their teammates
collaborate with their team?
How they mentor junior developers.
Right.
Or how they contribute to the overall knowledge sharing within the team.
A good mentor.
Right.
Are they?
Those are all great examples.
Sharing their knowledge.
And it might also involve taking a closer look at, the quality of the code.
Yeah. What's the
efficiency of the solutions.
A quality of their code.
And the impact that those solutions have on the end users.
Are they writing?
Right.
Right. So
it sounds like it requires a shift in mindset.
Yeah.
Moving away from that kind of factory worker mentality.
Yeah, like moving away from.
Where it's all about output.
Just thinking of engineers as.
And embracing a more nuanced view of software engineering as a craft, as a collaborative art form.
Code monkeys.
I think that's beautifully put. And it's a shift that I believe is essential, not just for improving productivity, but for creating a more fulfilling and sustainable work environment for software engineers.
Because at the end of the day, happy engineers
are more productive.
At the end of the day, happy engineers are productive engineers.
That's right.
I couldn't agree more.
Words to live by.
And I think that's a fantastic note to end on.
Well, this has been a fascinating deep dive.
It has been a pleasure exploring these ideas with you.
I feel like we've learned so much.
Me too.
About what it means.
Yeah.
To be a productive software engineer.
Absolutely.
And to our listeners.
And to our listener.
We hope that this deep dive has given you some new insights as well.
We hope this deep dive has sparked some new ideas and insights for you as well.
And remember,
the conversation doesn't end here.
The conversation doesn't end here.
Keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep pushing the boundaries.
Keep pushing the boundaries.
Of what's possible in the world of software development.
Until next time, fellow deep divers.